everybody, and welcome back to Inky Thoughts podcast. Today is a special episode, and though we are sadly months away in both directions from the Women's International Women's Day, it is going to be all about the ladies today, but hopefully in a very interesting way. I at least find this very interesting, but I am biased. I know, I'm the fucking sociologist here. I am always biased for this. But I've brought on a guest that actually I got recommended warmly by a guest that's previously on the show, Katie Mizuno, who recommended her so warmly originally for a very different thing, actually, that I could not help but research, but I got way more fascinated about a different thing we're going to talk about today. Originally, this was going to be a Halloween episode, if you ask Katie. Not the case, unless you're scared of women, not a Halloween episode. This is going to be all about the need, basically a need still for female-run or indeed queer or other marginalized groups like Black or colored people run spaces in the tattoo industry, and why that might be the case. But in this particular episode, spoken from the perspective of women in the industry. And before I butcher this anymore or ramble on any further incoherently as I am wont to do, Jessie, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Jessie Silva. I own Just Another Hole in the Wall Tattoo in Pendleton, South Carolina. I'm originally from Massachusetts, moved down here about, over 20 years ago now. And I've got a daughter, got a 5-year-old daughter. I run my studios all female, down from the managers to the tattoo artists. And I'm 37 years old, and I've been tattooing for 14 years now.
Damn, I mean, you have been going for quite a while as well, just like Katie and others. Just to clarify again, if I remember correctly, Katie used to work in a studio you had, right?
Yeah, so she came for a guest spot. She was living in
Oh, right,
California.
that's what it was. All right.
Yeah, her now husband, he was doing an internship at one of the local
Okay.
companies, reached out to my shop and wanted to do a little guest spot.
Oh,
So
nice.
she was there for 3 months, and there was the potential for her to stay.
Damn,
And
just three
gosh,
months and you already became that fast friends. Like, she spoke so highly of you, and I mean, she's a sweetheart, absolutely, like through and
yeah.
through. Her husband as well, for that matter. Like, he got a
Oh, they're
guest
so
appearance in
great.
that. He got a guest appearance in that episode. I've never been less like against a husband, a spouse, like any
Yeah,
partner walking in on anything, because he's a really nice guy. Like,
he's
he's such
amazing. He's so
a,
great.
they're really great people. It's so
Yeah.
helpful as well. Actually, almost too helpful. Like,
Oh,
they,
he's
they
like,
recorded these professional cameras. I can't afford their end of it as well separately. Those files are too big for me to even know what to do with my limited skills in editing and stuff like that. But it's still incredibly sweet of them to do that. Like,
I know. They're and what a great team they
oh,
are too.
absolutely,
Like the way that
absolutely.
they work together, it's amazing.
But now, to not
Yeah.
digress too much, because I feel we could both talk for a while about Kate and
Yes.
Kento, because they
Yes,
are
we love
great people.
Katie.
But I wanted to ask you because I always, and this is the one question I always remember to ask, because I'm fascinated every time, and it is a good way into knowing your own passions about tattooing. How did you get into tattooing and tattoos themselves, respectively?
Yeah, so I actually didn't grow up around tattoos. My biological father is like a bodybuilder. He was a meat cutter. He's very not that. My parents got divorced when I was 7, and my mom she got into a relationship with a guy who tattooed it on the side. He
Oh, wow.
actually made dentures and teeth for a living. He owned a dental lab, oddly enough. But he always tattooed on the side because it was illegal in Massachusetts until
I mean, there's been
2006.
a few states back then where, I mean, that's even for longer than it was in New York. I mean, New York legalized it in the 90s, as far as I remember. That's a,
It's wild when you really, because most people don't know that. Like, what do you mean
no,
it was
I didn't until you
illegal?
said it. Like, that's,
Yeah.
damn.
So 2006. So anyway, so he tattooed on the side, and he used to let me design tattoos for him.
Oh,
And I've always been an artist, and I just remember thinking, this is it. This is
mm,
how I do art for a living. And then I worked with him. They shut down all their businesses and opened
mm.
one of the first tattoo shops in Massachusetts
Oh,
when
wow.
it became legal in 2006. And I worked there for a long time. I was just I just loved everything about it. I loved the
Mm,
culture. I loved the art. I loved the people. The people was the best part for me because I just
mm,
love people. And so slowly I would just learn from him and apprentice under him. And then I went to college, kept apprenticing. And then by the
mm.
time I graduated, I started full time at their studio. So they had hole in the wall tattoo.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that's where I
I
got my
see that.
name.
I mean, if people didn't hear it at the beginning, Hole in
Yeah.
the wall?
So
Just
so they
another hole
had
in the wall.
yeah, they had a hole in the wall. And then when my husband, he wanted to do his PhD, so we knew that we were going to have to move. And I've had a passion and a dream to have my own tattoo studio since I
Mm.
started, since I learned that I wanted to tattoo. So in my mind, I could not, there was no other name that I could think of. That was the
No.
only, how it just gets stuck on a
Hey,
loop.
it pays homage back to where you started as well, so I get it. I
That's
mean, it's sort
yeah,
of sweet in a way, without
yeah.
it's not like making it a chain or something like that. People misunderstand. It's just, it's a nice way of paying, sort of looking back and seeing where you came from and sort of,
Yeah.
showing some pride in that in a way, I think.
Oh, pride and thanks and gratitude, because without him and my mom,
Hmm.
like I don't, I think about it
That
now. It's like
almost sounded like a 4th of July speech, like how you started that.
there might be a few of those in here. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm super grateful that, he allowed me to learn from
Yeah.
him, because it at that time, 14 years ago, it was really hard. There were not many women in this
No,
industry,
I
or
mean
not.
that's the thing people forget often. I mean, I just recently published an episode with a sociologist I'm very good friends with called Beverly Ewan Thompson, and she's researched tattoos for a long time. She's from New York. I mean, that's where she at least is a professor now, and from the States. And most of the research she did back in the early 2000s, and even back then, not many women tattooing,
No.
not a lot. Still at and that's why we're going to talk more about this today. It is going to be tough, but hopefully we're going to get through it with a good bit of laughter. But rampant misogyny back then as well.
Mm, yeah.
And a lot of hate against anybody, not a white man, wanting
Yeah.
to tattoo, both in Europe, the States, the UK, anywhere really. And it's baffling because we're in the same generation. It seems like yesterday, sometimes 2001 and
Oh yeah.
2006 and those are times. Yet it's not like it's fucking ages ago when it comes to public opinion and societal norms and values, right?
No.
It's baffling. But
I know.
so you got into tattooing, but did you have any tattoos when you started that? Or did
No.
you sort of get into it at the same
Well,
time?
sort of. I mean, I
Sort of,
started kind
okay.
of early. Like my dad was a tattoo artist. So did I get tattoos pretty young? Yeah, maybe. It's like I worked in the shop since I was 14. So it
Uh,
was like, oh, will you tattoo me today? Maybe we'll
well,
just get a couple. But
I mean,
they
it's
were
better than how it happens with others that get through it.
yes. And I almost still made some of those mistakes. So, it's out
For
there.
fuck's sake.
So, but yeah, I definitely got them pretty young. But the one thing they wouldn't tattoo my arms. They
Okay.
always said
They
that,
were careful
they
about
said that
visibility.
well, it wasn't even, well, maybe it was visibility too, but more it was make sure that the style that you really love and what you want to
Mm.
see forever is on the places that you like. It's like prime real estate.
Yes,
So
14-year-old girl. Makes
oh no, oh, it's so hard now because you see so many young people getting like their hands and their face and their neck, and
Yes. Oh,
it's like that's a whole other topic. But
let's not dive too deep into that because my problem there is not that they want their hands or their neck tattooed, it is
no,
where they start. Because Beverly said it as another sociologist. Most tattoo artists I've asked said it. Most collectors I've talked to say it. The reason you don't start on the hands, neck, and face is not that we're against doing that. We fucking love people that have that. We know too many people that have that.
yeah,
It's that you have no idea about the positive and negative attention it will draw to you. And for anybody, especially if you're introverted, it's gonna be fucking hard
yeah,
to tolerate that and
yeah.
to learn to
Well,
live
not
with
to
that.
mention career path.
That too, because there's still a lot more lingering stigma than people think nowadays. Because we
Right?
see more lenient places like California or like, for example, Scotland and places like that, where depending on the profession more than the culture itself in the place, you might be fine.
Right.
But in most places, especially about the States, I would argue, actually,
Oh
you're not
gosh.
going to be fine with that.
Yeah, we're in South Carolina, and the town that we lived in before this, my husband was a
Yeah.
teacher and he had to cover all of his tattoos still.
Jeez. Oh yeah. So you've
You
been
know,
practicing.
yeah, in the late 2000, 2019,
Well,
it's
yeah,
like,
I know you've been to two for a while now. I didn't mean like
yeah,
that'll be cool every time you want to expand your style. You're like, hey, honey,
yeah, exactly. I
come
need
in
to
here.
practice some stuff.
We're trying out realism this time.
Yeah. Well, that's my thing. That's definitely my thing. So
Let's
he
try a
doesn't mind.
blackout this time.
Yeah, he might not. as much as I actually have a little bit of that coming up, so I'm pretty excited about
Mm.
kind of
Well, maybe you
dabbling
should start
in.
that with him. Maybe you should just say like, hey, can I have a leg or thigh at least? Like just a
He
bit of
doesn't.
real estate on you that I can just,
Just
practice
gonna
on.
try some stuff.
Fake skin's expensive. You gotta.
I know, and it's so not realistic,
I mean,
unfortunately.
you know
So,
that better than me. I've tried tattooing once on some fake skin at a conference I was at where one of the PhDs there was also a professional, is still a professor of tattoo called Adam
oh
McDade.
wow.
He was in one of my episodes actually. Uh, and he showed us all how to tattoo, just some small little stencils done with the logo of the conference. And, it was fun to try. But
Yeah.
even I could, so I have no idea because I've never tattooed real skin if it
No,
compares. Like,
it's
no
so
idea.
different.
But from what I
It's so
hear
very
from
different.
others, no, it doesn't. It's good to practice on. But also, I would argue, nor does an orange or fucking ham shank really feel like human skin. There's
Yeah,
blood in human skin. There's still pulsing blood in human skin and heat and all
right.
that stuff.
And everybody's skin is so very different, and
Mm.
from here to here is different, so
Mm.
it's a very interesting career.
To bring us a little back to topic,
Yeah.
because I know it's a female completely run studio, but you do tattoo. There's no gender barrier for who comes in and gets tattooed.
No,
No, no.
no,
I mean,
not at all.
you can tell just scrolling through your Instagram, you can see that. But uh, is it different? Because I've never actually asked this, but it just came to my mind now that we're going to talk about
Yeah.
women in tattoo a little bit today. Is there a difference between male and female skin? Because I would imagine physiologically there might be some difference to it.
No, I mean, overall, no.
No, no.
I guess I assume it's more of a like a life experience or a life
Yeah, I can
path
imagine that too. Yeah.
difference. There are some men, if you're going to work in construction for 20 years of your life, there's going to be parts of your skin that are
It's
just
gonna be fucking
exponentially tougher.
leather.
Right, exactly. But there could be women that have had that same career path and
Yeah.
their skin could be very similar as
All,
well.
all, all, all the girls out there who get a lot of fake tan or a lot of sunbed
That's
time, that
that's another
also,
thing.
that from what I at least know from people have known, that can also make it a little interesting to tattoo an area if you've been
A little tougher. Uh-huh.
constantly bombarding it with some UV rays in a
Yeah.
sunbed.
I would say maybe the only thing, just because of more of a like a likelihood for women to be more in
Yeah.
tune to exfoliating
Skincare.
and skincare in
Yeah.
general. Yeah, because I mean, I can't tell you how many
Yeah,
times I've
sort of,
told a
because
man like,
that's the other stereotype I will say kind of holds up just by social circumstance, I would call it. Women's skin off is often nicer to tattoo and more ready for a tattoo because you do a lot of skincare. Like
you're
on
using
average, I mean,
lotion.
talking in general terms here, of course, every woman's different and
Yeah,
every woman has the right to be who they fucking want to be, whether you want to be one thing or another. But generally speaking, there is just outside of the cis male identity, a lot more skincare going on.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like within men kind of bullshit mentality to call it what it is, there's still that whole idea of like, no, I'm not going to use sunscreen. What am I, a girl?
yeah.
No, I mean,
Or
you might just
lotion.
not like skin cancer.
Yeah, lotion in general. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm telling male my aftercare routine, and they're like, lotion. I'm like, like the stuff that you put on your skin to make it nice and smooth and soft, and they're like, I guess I'll get some. Or my wife has some. Is what I hear all the time. I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. And that's not
Mm,
every that like I hate to make generalities in tattooing because it's so specific to like skin and people.
yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely.
but I see it more often than not. And my clientele, honestly, my clientele is probably 60% male. So
Oh,
I
really?
do,
Wow.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is
I
actually
think,
fascinating.
yeah. My style, I think, sometimes will lend itself. I like to do really heavy black and gray
Yeah, yeah,
tattooing.
yeah, yeah. A lot of
That's
contrast and
my,
stuff like that.
yeah. And so I think just over the years, it's
You
developed
got
in
a bit
like,
of a secret goth girl hidden in there
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you saw me like 20 years ago, it wouldn't be
Okay,
so
no.
secret. But yeah,
No, but it is fascinating. My suspicion would be why, because if we go back into the old school mentality, you would think like, oh shit, there's not going to be a lot of men going into an all-female studio. But I think, especially a lot of men now, you can correct me on whether they are old heads or if they're newbies. A lot of them, or if they're but I imagine a lot of them are not like old school collectors or stuff like that. They're probably sometimes newer because they often seem more open to being like, no, fuck, man, anybody. If you're good at tattooing, you can fucking tattoo.
Yeah, I think I'm in a unique avenue where I get
Mm.
both,
All
I
right.
get
Oh,
my
cool.
clientele would probably be anywhere from like mid 20s to 60s.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so a lot of these, a lot depending on the person. I mean, I've had your old school biker guys who have
Mm,
been to all the different styles of tattoo shops, and they
mm,
come to mine and they're like, I wouldn't expect that this would be where I would land, but that you can't
mm,
fight the comfort that I get here and the
mm,
skill level that, like we definitely take people's comfort
mm,
as far as when you come into the building and how you're treated once you're here. We take that into a lot of consideration.
mm.
So I mean, everybody appreciates being treated nicely,
I mean,
So
honestly, don't knock it till you try it if anybody's against
yeah,
it. Like it is quite like, because I remember, I mean, Denmark's a bit behind the time. So when I got my first tattoo 2008, I was in an old school studio. And even though she was a woman tattooing me for the first time, not a nice experience. Not the nicest. I
yeah,
mean, it wasn't fucking shitty or anything like that. She was professional and that stuff, but it was just like, you didn't feel welcome. You felt like you
yeah,
had to leave fucking ASAP after it was done. And that was
yeah.
not just because it was my first time or anything like that.
I
Whereas
hear
when you
that.
started getting treated more nicely later on, even small things, like nothing big or anything, because people always go like, "Oh, should I sit there and fucking have coffee with them?" No, if not, if you don't want to, like, fuck,
No,
we're
you
not
don't
talking
have
about that.
to.
Exactly. Just the small things, like just feeling appreciated and like accepted for who you are is great. Like even when I've not been like, I love going to nerdy tattoo artists because I'm a massive geek myself and love like anime and fucking cartoons and video games and that stuff. But even when I'm not, if I'm treated nicely, it
Yeah.
just makes you more happy and more comfortable. It's fucking logic. And I think a lot of these, I feel so anti my own gender sometimes,
No,
but
no, because it's not all
some of
across the
these too
board.
chauvinist, like, I've got to be tough as a man. As soon as you try that like nicer treatment, they often like soften up and go like, oh, you know what? This thing is kind of nice. It smells good in here. It's friendly. It's you know.
And I think you're seeing a shift in the industry just in
Yeah, I
general
would
when it
argue,
comes
yeah.
to that though, like male and female, because I'm seeing
Uh,
that a lot more even on social media
uh,
where
yeah.
it's about, so I think one of our big things and again the shift that's changing I think is
Mm,
understanding the tie between the experience of getting a
yeah,
tattoo and the tattoo itself.
yeah.
And how it's not just about the end result, it's about the
No,
process. And
that's
so
a
what yeah,
brilliant point, an absolutely brilliant point. Because I think there's two things that's happening right now. And I don't want to diminish the inflation having an effect on a lot of tattoo artists' business right now. There are a lot less clients that have the money to go tattoo, but there are some people that really having a lot of success right now because it's the people that are sort of not forget, they are embracing a thing that used to be really common back in the day in a different way, but in a new way that's even better, where it's about the experience. No matter how great you are as an artist, or how new you might be, or people just want to be treated nicely. And we're seeing it
yes,
everywhere, especially with the younger generations, even in the job market and everything. People just want to be respected and accepted for who they are. Like people
yeah,
are getting too fed up with it now.
yeah.
And the times are gone where your skill can just get you to be to a point. Like there's very few of these people that can just survive like this left, I would argue, where it's like, oh no, I can be an asshole because I'm the best at this shit. Uh,
The thing
that's
is,
going out the window.
there's so much talent in this industry now.
Mm.
It's not few and far between. Now it's
No,
holy moly, it's almost oversaturated with the
no.
most talented artists you've ever
Oh,
seen.
absolutely.
So it's not enough just to be good
No,
anymore.
no,
Like you have to
not at
offer
all.
something more, I think.
And I don't want to get into the social media side of things because we agree there that that's gone too far. Like
Yeah,
that's I've already discussed this in a different episode, and that's a whole other gripe. But one thing I do like is that the whole thing about having a new thing where it becomes about the experience again and not just about getting a good tattoo, because you can find somebody else that could do just as good a new traditional one town over or down the other
absolutely.
end of your city. It becomes about, hey, do I vibe well with this person? Like, do I
Right.
get along with them? Like, and I think my personal thing is, I think women were really the first in the industry to really embrace this.
Yeah.
Like I think the men were sort of holding back a bit. Not that everybody was fucking assholes or anything like that. There's a male. Nobody has lacks the capacity to be nice. It's just
Right.
about wanting to be. I've been to great artists, both genders and everything. But I just feel like when you look at it from a more macro perspective as a sociologist, there just seems to have been a lot more push from women in the industry to try and get this ball rolling, so to speak, earlier on, where the men were sort of like, just shut the fuck up, get in, get the tattoo, and then go for a lot longer. And not all, like, and I also get the fact, because I want to be clear about this, people are, tattoo artists are human too.
Correct.
You can have shitty days where you just want to talk less than that, and opening communication about that is great. I've been to artists where they're like, hey man, it was a shit day. I just want to, get into it and get the grind going. And when you say that to me, I'm like, hey, sure, man, fine. But just being met with like grumpiness and that's, you know,
It just doesn't, it
that's why
doesn't,
it's
it's
just
not
the open
conducive for
communication
either
is great.
side. Yeah.
And the other thing is just, and again, I think women understood this earlier on, and a lot of people that are just old school, like men, like brewed tattooers, and I'm probably gonna get hate for this, but it's that actually Jim, who does the Scottish Tattoo Convention, said that when I was doing the trailers, I watched the whole episode, and his episode's coming out next week when we're recording this, so it's fresh in my mind. He talked about this as well. Like people forgot how it's also about the experience, because you're tattooing. You're not just doing art. You're working on people's bodies.
Yes.
So you gotta, and I would put it this way: if you don't want to like people, make art for their walls, not their bodies.
Do anything else.
Yeah, because you gotta like people in this industry,
Yeah.
especially today, because people are done with that, and that's the one good thing I feel came out of there being a lot more artists. And I know I'm gonna get so much hate for that. I'm gonna be called a pussy or soft or whatever. Fuck that. The thing is just people realized it, and they would have before sooner or later, and it could have destroyed the industry if people don't accept it. To be honest, when you look at it sociologically, it's happened to other industries where if they didn't learn service skills, they would have gone under.
Yeah.
That
Well, I mean,
you
people
gotta
expect it
make an
nowadays.
attempt to be able to handle people.
Yeah.
And the most successful studios I know these days that are doing okay, at least okay, or even great, despite the inflation, it's not just popularity they already had. It's also because they just do want to handle people. They do want to communicate with people. And it's not saying you can't fucking tell an asshole he's a fucking asshole, or throw somebody out of your shop if they go over your boundaries. Of course you can. Of
There's,
course you can.
you're still a person yourself. So like,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
much as I want to treat you well, we respect a reciprocating respect relationship between client and tattoo artist. So I
Of course,
mean,
if I come into your studio, it's just like, what the fuck is with all this room of bitches? Like, of
oh,
course you have a
well,
right to be like, you know what, sir?
not
Doors
here.
there,
Yep.
out there.
There's a lot of other shops that you might be fit in a little bit better
Exactly.
at.
And others artists have been in the show have made a good point about it, that you say it with your chest. Like, if you want to have an all male studio with just the boys, then say it. Then
Yeah,
be open
there's nothing
about
wrong
that.
with that.
Absolutely not. The wrong thing is when you like, oh fuck man, why do they want to do that? Why do they want to have that? Because I imagine you opening your all female studio. Now, I know you've been quite lucky, it sounds like, but there must have been some people coming in to the discussion, so to speak, with some less than flowery language, I would imagine.
I think about this a lot because a lot of the question that I get is, oh, like, did you intend for it to be all female?
Mm.
Or, oh, there must be guys that don't like to come there, or,
Mm.
and that's this like common theme. And I think, I was very fortunate in that,
Mm.
of course, it was my dad who taught me. I was never made to think that I couldn't do this.
All
There was
right, yeah.
never opposition where it's like, oh, you're not capable of running your own place, or you're a girl, so don't even try. I mean, I got it in the past where it was like, you're an artist, so don't try to
Yeah.
make money at art because that's not feasible. And I was like, well, I'm going to, so I'll just figure out
Yeah.
how. But, but, yeah, I was never told no, like I was never
Yeah.
told that I couldn't. So in my mind, like my mom and my dad, they're entrepreneurs, they've always had their own
Yeah.
businesses. They've always pushed boundaries because
Mm.
they just weren't willing to not do it. So I kind of watched that. And in my mind, it was like, well, the only thing stopping me is me. And am I going to be met with opposition? And are people going to look at, because I
Yeah.
started when I was 20, God, I was 23 years old. So I was like a baby. And I
Sorry, I
did
just gotta
get,
get over the grenade shock of thinking back to my early 20s.
and it was crazy. I mean, I remember there were a few people, and I think it just so happened that they were like older males
Yeah.
that looked at me and they were like, she's not touching me. And I was like, well, all right,
Yeah.
that's too bad. But
Yeah.
but I didn't get
But even
so
all the
much of
women used to
that.
be like that. Like I've read stories in research papers, because you get some fascinating stuff from back in the day sometimes. And some of the old papers from sociologists and anthropologists, some women have even talked about how they've had to change gear because they also used to be against women tattooing them. Because
But
even women sometimes get these ideas that are socially constructed with a society just battered into their skulls, and it becomes part of their own way of thinking, you know.
oh
So,
yeah, well,
so that's almost worse, to be honest. Sometimes when we, as we say in Danish, I'll translate it though. Don't worry, it's not going to be in Danish now. But when they goal keep for the
uh-huh.
misogyny, sometimes you know
Yeah.
that's almost worse. But of course, it's out of a place of ignorance. I mean, you're not used to seeing women in the field. Where you were lucky starting 2006, even though it was thin on the ground, it was not never happening.
Right, exactly. Like everybody knew what tattoos were, and they were prevalent everywhere else. There was just a bunch of states that held out, and I just so happened to
Yeah.
be in one of them, and then moved to another one where South Carolina, it was 2010 before they
Jeez.
legalized. So it's like, we're kind of my parents kind of followed the legalization of it, and
They were trying to keep you out
moved.
of it.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, all right, you're gonna let us, all right, we're gonna come there and we're gonna start it up. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess just I've just never been in the mindset of
No,
you can't, it's
no.
just how hard are you going to work until you can?
But was it what I mean, I'm sorry to rehash
No.
this because I know you just sort of mentioned that you've heard this a lot before, but it's interesting to get into this, even though it's a bit old hat, I would guess. But were there any like opposition to opening an all-female studio? Did you meet any like negative voices regarding it?
No, so it happened really organically, so that's why I think
Okay.
it wasn't like, oh, here we are,
Ah, so
it
it
was
wasn't
more.
like
No, it
here's
was
the
more
mission,
so.
like
No, 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 no. It was literally, I mean, I opened my studio with me and my sister. My sister moved,
ah,
she helped me run the studio, and then it was just me tattooing. And then we slowly,
ah,
like, I apprenticed people, and they all just so happened to be female after female after female. And I remember it was years ago, it was before I even started tattooing. I saw an article in an old tattoo artist magazine, and it
yeah.
was a woman tattoo artist, and they had a spotlight on her, and she was talking about how she ran her studio like a spa. Like she
Mm.
wanted people to be able to come there and feel comfortable. And it stuck in my head for all these years.
But
And I
that's the
remember
thing. That's my
thinking,
point exactly. Like you saw it back in the old magazine with the interviewed female owners of studios and artists that you almost got pulled up like, look at this crazy broad. She
yeah,
runs it
right,
like a
right.
spa, you know,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And that was how it was even in the fucking. I remember reading some of my first tattoo magazines back in the day, 2006, 2007. You know, when I didn't even have tattoo shop myself, just fascinated about it. Even then I noticed like, oh, when women are in it, they were like, oh yeah, look at this, and she does this weird shit here. Like
Yeah. It's wild. I mean, it was like such a foreign concept, because
yeah.
you had this idea of what a tattoo shop is or was. And I mean, we still have people walk in here and be like, whoa, we've never been to a shop like this before. It's
Mm.
like, well, that's awesome. So welcome, and let's, and enjoy this experience because it's going to be a little different.
But so even though it happened organically, as you say, because
Yeah.
I get that it wasn't like, oh no, a man applies. No, I'm not gonna like
No, it
even even though
wasn't.
even though it happened organically, was there sort of a conscious moment where you felt like, you know what, having an all-female studio could sort of be a great idea? Like,
Yeah, so I remember at one point I was a little worried to lean into it because
mm,
I didn't want to try and shove it in anybody's face, like, oh, we're all
no.
women, like no men allowed. That that wasn't my intention because like I said, I've
Mm.
always had male clientele. My dad
Yeah,
is who taught me, like
yeah.
I've always grown up around male influences in the industry. So I
I mean,
that wasn't
difficult
my.
not to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah. Growing up,
Yeah.
I mean, who else was I going to learn from? So, I mean, I, I do remember very much thinking like, is this something that I really want to just
Mm,
drive home as our
yeah.
thing? But what I realized is we got more acceptance and love and excitement about the all female thing
Yeah.
from both sides, and it was cool
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
women would tell us that they felt more comfortable here, that they
Yeah.
felt like they could just kind of be themselves. If they had to be in a kind of like uncomfortable situation for tattooing, they felt much more at home here. But then on the flip side, men even said they're like, we love coming here because like obviously it's not bad to be surrounded by women. They didn't hate it, but they felt I mean it's just what it was. But the comfort level, they were like, we've been to a lot of different
No,
shops, and
I
I
get
just.
what you meant. It was just the way it sounded from what was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I know.
Like, I'm
I
so
mean,
happy you said it. Like,
it's just what I hear,
no, I
and
mean,
it's like,
I'm a straight white cisgendered man as well. Of course, it's not bad. I will say
but
this though, in mine and other people's defense, it is the skill level first, at least in my book. And I
100%,
mean,
100%. And that's
you,
the other thing.
of course, you're very good looking, and some of the other women that work in your studio are also beautiful, at least in my taste. It's very subjective that. But I will say this, you could all be not my type at all. If you do great tattoos,
100%,
still gonna come.
100%. And I like kind of mentally, but it's one of those things where I did, like, hearing it from the male perspective
Yeah,
was
yeah,
obviously unique, and I wanted to make
yeah,
sure, because that was my worry. My worry
yeah.
was being
Men are
all
gonna say,
female. We
"Oh,
were
fuck, that's a girls' club." Like,
right.
not gonna go.
I don't want to leave anybody out. Like, no matter
No.
what how you identify, like, I want to make sure that you know that you are welcome here and that you should be
Yeah.
comfortable here regardless. And I think, I think with all this acceptance and the love that the shop is, I think sometimes, like, straight white male can almost feel uncomfortable in this situation. And I wanted that not to be the norm either. I don't want anybody to feel that way.
No,
So,
I get that. I don't think it happens automatically, I would say. I think that's also often, I mean, I'm going to pull the sociologist card here. I
right.
think often people worry too much, like, oh, if I lean into this all-female studio, this queer studio, are the straight men gonna be nervous? If you're nervous by that, you've not confronted your own biases and
Correct.
prejudices.
Correct.
Hands down. And that's said
Hands
as a
down.
social scientist. That's not as a tattoo collector or a podcaster. That's just science, baby.
Right.
That is your own prejudices. Not of course, I still get your thing because you live in the real world and you don't live in a theoretical, hypothetical. You have to consider these things. I just wanted to get that out there. That I
Yeah.
don't think that should, if that makes anybody uncomfortable, that's because they've not confronted their own behavior and are still nervous about that. And being open about that can be great too. I can still be
Yeah.
fucking nervous about how I'm around women because even I fuck up.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
I ask. If I have the conscious tattoo that it comes into mind, I'll fucking ask. I'll
Yeah.
be like, hey, is it all right? Can I put my feet up here? Is this anything really?
Yeah.
But it's all about
Yeah.
communication.
100. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that our studio is very big on, is from the time you send in a request to the time that you're in the studio, there's a lot of communication that happens between us and you beforehand. So you kind of already get a sense of what we're going for here before, so you know whether
Hardcore
or
no
not.
man, no.
Yeah, no. No. Just be nice, like, be a good
Yeah, yeah.
human being, and you'll probably get along fine here. Like, it's pretty simple.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we can all, I think, simple rules to play by. Don't be a dick. Like,
Don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. Either way, it's pretty
no,
simple.
but I get the initial nervousness, like
Yeah.
opening the studio and thinking, okay, are they gonna follow? Because I imagine even with some of your regulars that are men, you'd think, oh fuck, are they now gonna be like, oh shit, man, Jesse, you've made a whole, like, it's gonna be all perfume and fucking glitter. What am I gonna do there?
And
Like,
I mean, and we're very fortunate that it has been the opposite.
yeah,
It's
I
just,
mean, that is
yeah,
just great. But that's sort of the point I wanted to get at as well, because then you're able to say it's been fortunate. Because if men open a studio that's all men just by chance, because that happens a lot, just not
yeah.
by them designing it that way, just they're not going to be like, oh, we were fortunate that people were okay with that.
It's true.
That's not
That's
the
true.
case. It's sort of that fact that people that open any sort of studio focused on a marginalized group, even if it's one as comically large as the female population,
Yeah.
even though women are still marginalized quite a lot, it becomes this thing where they have to they feel fortunate when it goes well because all
Yeah.
the stories out there, all the bad experiences other people have faced in that, and that's the whole thing because that fact alone sort of makes it quite apparent, at least from a social scientific perspective, that these spaces are still needed. Like you still need to have shops that are women owned and women run. Because there's shit out there, and there's still a lot of bad shit, and it's not that every woman then needs to go to a female-run place. Not what I'm saying, but
No.
it's great that for people that feel that will give them more comfort, this place exists. Same
Yes.
for queer people. Not every queer person out there wants to or feels the need to go to a queer artist, but some may be immensely comforted by the fact that they have that option, that they can find openly queer studios, or trans people, or black people, especially for black people, actually. There's therefore students don't even know how to work their skin tone sometimes.
Right,
And it gives
right.
them comfort to be with somebody. You have tattoos, you are tattoo artist, you have my ethnicity. Great, you know. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that doesn't mean they would never go to a white artist or they would never go to somebody else. That just means that it's comforting to have the option out there. And it's to some extent a necessity that we have that option out there as well. You know?
That's what's so great about the growing of the industry is you're seeing more and more
Absolutely.
people getting into it, you know, of all
Absolutely.
types of backgrounds. And you just because there's more of us that are willing to train
Mm.
more of us. So, you know, I think before it was just such a small group of
Yeah.
people in general who were able to tattoo.
Mhm.
So there was this like secret group that you just couldn't
Yeah.
actually get into. So I mean, I say it all the time. Yeah, I was super, super lucky and fortunate that my dad was a tattoo artist. Like
Yeah.
I never want to downplay that because
No, 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 no.
I got like the golden ticket into this industry at a time when honestly, if I had tried, I don't know that I would have been able to otherwise, or it would have been exponentially harder.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
you
I
know,
mean,
and I think
at
that's
least the last one, at least we can say for sure. Like back
for
then,
sure.
absolutely.
And I think that's what as I'm realizing as I've gone so many years in this industry now, and I've been so fortunate to be able
Mm.
to apprentice a bunch of other females. It's kind of cool to see that we're like to be able to bring more women into the
Yeah,
industry and to give them the option when
yeah,
a lot of the times doors are shut for them. You
yeah,
know, it's just
yeah,
it's that's been my favorite part
yeah.
between that and then like having my own studio and being able to create this space. Those have been it's kind of it's still surreal, you know,
Well,
that's where we're at.
I,
But
I think it's beautiful because you're sort of paying it forward in a way, but also creating the opportunity for others. And I think now I'm just gonna this is gonna be me guessing a bit, but I think you're very much like a former guest I had, Melvin, who was like, hey, his biggest dream as a black man male tattooer was like someday he would love if a black female tattooer, for example, made it all the way through his apprenticeship. Because that's the thing. I'm not advocating, and I don't think you are either, that apprenticeships should be easy.
no,
There shouldn't be bullying, there shouldn't be abuse, there shouldn't be harassment. But tattooing is hard and it's always going to be hard, even if you remove the abuse during an apprenticeship. And that's fine. It's fine that not everybody can make it through an apprenticeship. It is a difficult business, it is a difficult industry, and that's also fine. But it's still great that people like you and Melvin and others create these opportunities for others that might not normally get them, even just based on their fucking gender or their fucking physiological appearance, you know.
yeah,
That doesn't mean that I imagine you've had more than one that didn't make it through as well.
only one,
Only one.
and it
Okay,
just
fair
so
enough.
happened to be a male.
Fucking hell.
It wasn't
Undermining my point.
intentional,
No.
I swear. It was actually my
Uh,
very first
uh,
apprentice too. So
undermining my point, Jesse. No,
I know. I
no,
wish I didn't even want to bring it
my
up. I
point
tried not to.
my point is fine. But the thing is just like it's not that anybody wants to be easy because I've also said before this show and people can always hate on it if they want to if they don't agree with this or just not watch it. That's always an option not to watch this. I don't think it's okay to abuse the apprenticeship. I don't think that. I think it's hard. I also don't think gatekeeping has any place. It has place in one aspect of tattooing, and that is the one I get because I have a lot of respect for the industry. I get why you don't want hobbyists in just playing around at it for a couple of years and then they fuck off.
Yeah.
That I get. I
Yeah.
get that you want people to be skilled and passionate about tattooing. That I
Yes.
get.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because you've also gone through stigma to become this, and you've gone through a society that still doesn't view it as an actual profession in most countries. All that shit. So it feels fucking laughable when somebody just does it for a little bit and then they move on in the graphic design job, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know,
That I
there's so
get, you
much
know.
that goes into it as far as
Yeah,
just the your somebody's skin is in your hands, right? Like
yeah,
somebody's
exactly.
the way that a sort of person look is in your hands. So when you
In
take it
no
really
small
lightly,
terms, yes.
literally like quite literally,
Yeah,
so when you take it really lightly and it's just more of a hobby, it's like sometimes I feel like that can almost be dangerous because if you're not so serious about the whole process and about what it actually means to the person that you're working with, then you know you might not put everything you have into it. If you don't put everything you have into it, that's when you make mistakes. When you make mistakes, you long term affect somebody's perception of themselves potentially, you know, and that's just
absolutely.
not something to play with.
I
So
mean, that fucks the psychology and the confidence and everything. I did think
yeah.
of a really good example of what it meant as well. I'm gonna name the artist I talk about, but I'm not gonna name the people that mentioned him in an article and like reviewed him like some fucking revolutionary artists because I really like what they do and don't want them to get any hate. They just want some, we all do what we have to try and keep relevant, and get some attention on Instagram and all that stuff. But a guy, I think he's from Spain or somewhere like that, called Ricksard. He just tattoos all sorts of bullshit, not proper hygiene, not anything. All these rich kids flock to him to get really weird, badly done tattoos. Like he tattooed the shadow of a tree on somebody's back by being outside under that shadow and then tattooing the outline really shittily as well.
Okay.
And that makes and he does it all to be like, oh, I'm gonna show how weird and ridiculous the seriousness of the tattoo world is. Fuck you, man. You're just trying to get clout in an internet world and appropriating a really beautiful artistry and industry for your own fucking fame. There I get gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fuck
Yeah.
that guy. And fuck anybody like that. Because it's not taking it seriously. And it's not taking what you do in the job seriously. Because I don't care if you're run of the mill or below average tattooer, as long as you are serious about how you're affecting people's bodies. Absolutely fine.
100%. And it
Like,
comes back to the experience too. Like if you're
exactly.
invested in the person, you might not be the best tattoo artist in the world, but I guarantee you that person's going to keep coming back to you because you gave them more than just the tattoo, Yeah.
Shit, man. I mean, that's the same principle why, as much as I don't think people should do this, but sociologically speaking, it's the reason why some people can cherish a shitty tattoo done by a friend with a simple stick and poke in a room forever, because the experience of it encapsulates this. And if the friendship never dies out, they often do, so do be careful.
Yeah.
It's great. Like in theory, that experience can encapsulate the whole thing.
Absolutely.
That's exactly why when you create a good experience, people want to come back. Even if they later see somebody else that's like, oh, your tattoo is even sicker than mine, they still want to come back to you and not the other guy's tattoo. Because a lot of people are not like collectors. Most clients are not like that. They're not going to shop around. They're going to find one artist or one studio they really like, and then I'm going to keep coming there.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
the experience is fucking important.
So
I'm not just blowing, and I'm pretty sure I'm not just blowing smoke out of my ass. You can tell, Jesse.
No,
But I've been around enough studios to know most clientele return.
I would
To
go
studios
so
and
far to
artists.
say, like, I think that's the most important. I mean, obviously, you want quality and you want skill and
Absolutely.
you want all of that. But I
Absolutely.
mean, I hear it more often than not, where it's like, I'll go someplace else for like the little ones or whatever. But if it's something that really means something to me, I'm always going to come here. And I mean, that's the greatest compliment you can get.
That's the thing, exactly. Like most people come back when they really like an artist and really like their style and all that. It's a combination. Like the holy grail is that you get clients that both like what you do, but they also like how you do it.
Yeah.
That's the same with anything. I mean, we can even go outside the tattoo industry. If you want to be some sort of contractor or laborer or anything like that, people will always rather go to somebody to like, if it's building your fucking porch, you'd much rather get somebody where, okay, they're great at building the porch, but they also treat me okay when they're out there.
Right.
For example, right? Like, if they show up late, they fucking drink beers while they're doing it, or they fucking ruin half your fucking lawn while they put up the porch and so that, and they don't apologize or anything or show consideration for what you do if you work from home, for example, you're not going to hire them again.
No, because again, there's so many more people that can do such a better job.
Exactly.
So, why would you not choose that?
That's the thing. Like it is, tattooing is also. I will get a bit more back on topic, but I think this is actually important to the point as well, especially with what you've been talking about. It's a weird amalgamation of both craft, service, and artistry.
Yes.
And it's important not to forget any of them.
Correct. Yeah.
But especially the service part is so important today.
Yes.
Because people, and especially weirdly enough, because a lot of Americans push back against this as well. I've seen in the industry a lot, I say, but enough that it's noticeable. The whole thing is you love choice in America and the whole fucking liberal, like all that sort of stuff, right-wing policies. But that's the thing. With options also comes the option to fuck off. So forgetting the service bit becomes even more detrimental in that sort of market.
And I've heard it several times now where like I've had clients, they're like, oh, my friend or I personally went to this big name tattoo artist, because you can find anybody now, like we said, with social media, you can find out who's the best at what they do, right? And I cannot tell you how many times I have heard it, and this is no shade, but man, this guy's got this many followers and he's super popular and he's booked out for a year. So I got on his books and he charges all this money. And the tattoo's great, but the experience was shit.
Yeah.
And as
I've heard it
good
so many
as
times. I heard it so many
as
times.
much as I love the tattoo, I'm not gonna go back there. It's like, man, they're missing the point. That
But
artist is missing the point.
not to digress, but some people also just can't handle fame, and some people today with how people are so into tattoos now, sometimes, and it's just not going away anytime soon. People become famous so quick if they are great at tattooing that I think sometimes it just corrupts them a little bit. Not on purpose. I don't think they sometimes intentionally want to be assholes either, but it just gets to them, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And
Like,
I think that's with anything, right? Like,
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
fame can breed a different mentality that's not
If you're
necessarily
not
healthier.
mindful of yourself at least, it
Yeah.
can very quickly
Yes.
do that. And especially if it goes fast, it's difficult to keep that reflexive like mindset going as you
Yeah.
also try to keep track of where the fuck you're ending up. So I get
Right.
it. But yeah, no, there's some very famous people in the industry I've heard about who have met some of the people that collect, and they've met them, not always gotten tattooed by them, but they've met the person, they've seen how to do the work, and it's just no, 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 no. This is
And it's
not
so
how you
sad.
treat people.
It's like
Yeah,
when you see a
it is
band
quite
and that
sad.
you meet them and they're not cool and you're like, I can't even listen to the music you sing anymore, you know?
Or when you hear
It's
about a
not,
celebrity, you're like fucking up something like being really mean to animals or something, you're like, oh
oh,
fuck, now I can't watch that
now
movie
I can't
anymore.
even, yeah, can't even like you anymore. Like, that's awful. Yeah.
But I do wonder. You talk about a lot about the confidence that in your studio and how it's you sort of hint at least for now, and I think it's absolutely correct by the way, but and how it has a little bit to do with how it is an all women studio,
Mhm.
how the confidence. What is it exactly you guys do to get a bit more into the parts of it now, to look under the hood, so to speak, to put it in weirdly male terms for this. I don't even like cars myself, don't even like cars, but to look under the hood right now.
Uh, you
What
know,
is it about it that really does it?
So, one, the studio, like the new studio that we built, it's a
Hmm.
lot, it's a larger studio. So, I mean, like when you first walk in, there's a whole coffee bar that for you to enjoy
Oh
like a
wow,
nice
nice.
coffee and just we love coffee. So it's one of those things where it's like that's a comfort
Oh
for us.
yeah.
So we felt like it would be a comfort for everybody else. So there's a coffee bar, there's snacks there. You're gonna be
Okay.
greeted with a smile immediately. So we keep our door locked. We're appointment only. So like
Okay.
it's a very intentional like not allow like letting you in with a smile,
Hmm.
like how's your day, checking you in. And then each of us, I think that's super unique to every woman that works here is everybody is here for the client. Everybody
Hmm.
loves the client. We understand that we would not have a job if it weren't for the people coming
Yeah.
in the door. But we also love people. So just in general, we're just excited to
Hmm.
meet new people and to talk to new people. So when people come in, whether it's your client or her client or their client, we still are going to talk to you. We're still going to
Oh
try and like
nice.
tell you, we're going to say, oh man, we saw your piece. It's going to be so sick. Like, we're so excited for you. So that's a whole, that just the
No, I get it, yeah.
welcoming vibe, I think is really unique here. But then, on a more practical level, like my bathrooms, for instance, if you
Hmm.
need something, it's going to be in the bathroom. Like, and if
That's
it's not in the bathroom, it's going to be in the office for you.
I mean, for
Like
female clientele, it's actually quite the fucking comfort
it's important. I have a urinal too. So like,
Oh, fucking hell. I mean,
men really love
inclusive.
that. It's
Inclusive.
it's like, and like so we have a single bathroom. So like if you need a minute by yourself, you
Yeah.
can go to that. We have a double bathroom. So it's a little bit more of like, you want to hold my hand? We'll hold hands. Like whatever you need to do in that bathroom, it's fine. We can figure it out. But so that's very inclusive. We also
Yeah.
have a really nice outdoor space. So we're
Oh
kind of
yeah.
tucked away in the woods. So there's an
Hmm.
outdoor space. We go outside, we eat lunch, you listen to nature.
So it's
There's
not a
it's
hole in the wall, it's a hole in the tree.
it's just another hole in the woods, is what it is. It's just
Just
it's a
another
very
clearing.
yeah, it's very comfortable, like you're
It
very
sounds like it.
comfortable here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Each one of us have our own space too. So we each have,
Mm.
decorated and designed our own rooms, and we have either curtains or dividers that can go up for
Okay, yeah.
privacy's sake. So, and they're big rooms. They're fairly large, so you can kind of spread out and you can feel very comfortable. It's not stuffy, it's not hot. Um, Yeah, I mean, I tried again, that article stuck in my mind for all these
Okay,
years.
yeah, I can.
It
I mean,
really did. And so
clearly. I
and
mean,
now and now I think of an Airbnb for instance versus a hotel, right? You go to a hotel, like your needs are met, but it's not everything you could want. An Airbnb, it's like you're going home. And I feel like our studio is just like you're going home.
ironically feel exactly the opposite of that one.
Really?
Yeah, with Airbnb hotels, exactly the opposite.
Really? Is it because it's somebody else's
No, I
space?
mean, your example still works because it's your perspective, but I just ironically couldn't help but mention, I feel exactly the opposite about hotels and Airbnbs. I do
That's
not
so
want to
funny.
use, I don't want to touch anything when I'm in somebody else's home like that. So I feel
That's
so
valid.
constrained. If I'm in a hotel, I'm like, fuck it, man. I'll just leave a mess I'm not an asshole. I'm not gonna fucking shit in the sheets and hang them from the fucking window. Like, well, I feel a bit more relaxed because I know I'm here. I've paid for this. I can use the TV. I can use the thing. I can leave a messy bed if I want to, and that's part of it. They'll clean that, and they'll clear that up when I leave. I like that. But we're digressing. We're digressing so much actually. My own fault as always. But no, I get it. I mean, you had this idea of like not necessarily a spa, but at least making it more like, hey, this is going to be. I mean, imagine a lot of the sessions, not every session, I imagine, but a lot of them are going to take a few hours at least. It's nice to make it a space where, hey, if you need a break, you don't necessarily need to go. Plus, you're not exactly around the corner from a store, so imagine it's nice to have snacks there or a place you can sit and enjoy them. Because
Yeah,
if
we
you're in a
are
city
like,
getting tattooed, you just walk
yeah,
around the corner, you get a fucking soda and some fucking snacks, and then you go back into the studio. Let's carry on. You know?
yeah. We try to make it so that you don't like you can, there's still stuff around and we'll get
Yeah,
lunch for you if you want. But we try to just keep everything here so that you
yeah.
don't have to feel like you have to leave. You can
Relaxing. I
really
mean,
just be very comfortable here and really enjoy your time here. That's our goal.
for lack of a better term, it almost sounds mothering in a way.
I am a
To some
mom, so I
to
can't
some
help
extent. I mean,
it.
yeah, absolutely. Like not gonna like I've been in studios also, even male studios do this too nowadays, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Great one. I haven't been there yet, but one I've been in touch with that messaged me after the Scottish Studio is called Stone River in Edinburgh. Really wanted to come see this place. And same thing when I see the videos of their studio. Nice big room where people can sit while they wait. Nice open space. Nice communication it seems with all the clients and that. Now I haven't been there, so if it's completely untrue, my bad. But
Whoops.
it's nice this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And again, I think that also sort of. I mean, now it's more of a guesswork. I mean, from what I see myself, it's not. There's no research really done into this, so I can't really pull up like the scrolls or anything like that. Plus, I'll give Jessie PTSD with a fucking PhD in her house. But that I think this also sort of came with the female influence to some extent because back in the day, the idea we all had of the two studios where we cramp very much this front desk and you go behind that and then you're in, the shit. Then you're in the trenches and it's, even if it's just a few artists back then working in a studio, it would be a small studio. It would be like almost elbows rubbing with the other clients and stuff like that. We've all been there. If at
Oh
least
yeah.
if you're from our generation, we've all been there.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I think this first came from women because most studios I've read about back in the day was that also men back in the day also did this, but I think it may have originated women because I feel this idea, just like you read with the spa, so originally with some female tattoo artists thinking, can we make this more pleasant?
Yeah. Yeah. What can we do?
Because
I mean,
fitting into because weirdly enough, it might be a byproduct of how men and women both didn't really confront the weirdness of the gender norms back then. So men were
well,
just made more to think like, no, it's rough and that's just how it's gonna be. And women were like, could we make
doesn't
it
have to
nice?
be. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
weirdly, I think it might have been a byproduct of that back in the day that made it come from women first in the 90s and the early 2000s, being like, well, doesn't have to be a dark, messy room where you sit and tattoo people. You could also, be nice.
Yeah. Why not change it a little bit,
Could be snacks, could be a sofa.
But I mean, it's so I love it's like I love working out, but and to me it's like, okay, like the Planet Fitnesses of the world, it's like, okay, that's very much like a super clean
It's
environment,
weird
right?
how it's so cemented across the world, and even though we don't have a brand called Planet Fitness here, we did used to have one called Fitness World, and it's just exactly the
It's
same kind
similar.
of concept. Absolutely.
Yes. All acceptance, everything is very clean, but there's something to be said about your old school dirty gym. And so
Yeah.
not saying an old school dirty tattoo
No, no,
by
no,
any
no.
means, but it's like the differences in the mindsets or in the way that they're run. Like there's still
The
something to be said
familiarity, the
about that
comfort,
classic.
yeah.
Absolutely. Like my dad's an old, or was before he retired, like that's where he came from. And so to me,
Yeah.
that's still like a really authentic and beautiful experience
Oh,
as
I
well in
mean,
its
I'm
own
not
right.
saying all studios have to be one way or another. I
Right.
will make that
No, that's
clear.
just
I'm just
awesome.
making a point about some of
Yeah.
the changes I think that have been positive in a way, not saying the others were bad. That's always a thing you sort of
No.
have to reiterate, which is weird, that one thing being great doesn't mean the thing it changed was bad necessarily.
Correct. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
but there was nothing wrong with the old studios. It's just the others are even nicer.
Yeah, there's just
It's a
growth, you know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've been in small studios as well. Shit, man, they can be really cool as well. One of my favorite studios I've visited is an old school one in Glasgow, run by an old second generation tattooer. He's in his 60s himself, I think, by now. But small traditional tattoo studios still fucking beautiful
Yeah.
and awesome, and like a museum half of it, fucking great. That doesn't mean the other one isn't even nicer when there's a nice fucking waiting area and a couch and an open space and you feel you can breathe and there's high ceilings and all that. Doesn't make the other one bad. Just makes the other one even better to me, at least.
Yeah.
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 I think that's the same thing here. I think the comfort you're talking about is fucking great. And it's awesome. And it makes it even better. It improves, it takes a good thing and makes it even nicer.
Right. Right. Exactly. Just to expand on the same idea.
Exactly. And that's what I think came mainly from the female perspective. That is now sort of been embraced more broadly, and it's beautiful to see because I don't think like this is just going to be my personal theory on it. Such as I think that push really came from opening up the two world, especially towards the women in the industry, and them having more of an influence on how studios are shaped, how clientele is handled, everything. Because you also see it in old history reports. Like, for example, one of you read tattoo history books. Trust me, they're out there. Look for them. They're fucking
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
Often, the best tattooers had their wives work in the front desks because they were better at handling clientele.
Yeah.
And
That's actually how my
and
parents
they
tattooed me. That was exactly
thank you,
how it
Jesse.
ran. That was exactly how it ran. My mom ran the
But
shop, my dad tattooed.
I think anybody can be great at handling clientele, but it's, again, the old gender norms back then, they sort of reiterated certain things and they were subconsciously reproduced in a lot of people in our parents' generations and our grandparents' generations. Uh, so back then it was just like women are soft and sociable, men are hard and tough, all that bullshit. So, but that's why the influence, logically speaking, came from women in the industry and saying, okay, I'll handle the clientele. And then they feel comfortable, they feel greeted nicely, they feel welcome, they get to know what it is. You can be grumpy on the corner, putting ink in the skin. There we go, darling. But that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
it's sort of, and then as women started tattooing more, I mean, I don't think it's a difficult mental exercise to do. That it's easy to imagine, okay, a wife might have been running the front desk, then she gets curious about tattooing. Her husband opens up to the idea and starts apprenticing her, and she then gets more of an influence on how that part also works. And start getting interested in saying, but can't we use some of this niceness I use at the front desk when we're doing this? Can't we do, easy, I think, mentally to
Yeah.
make there.
Yeah.
That's how I think it might have slowly seeped in. Because nowadays
Definitely.
it's great, and even male studios think about this shit. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you think about this stuff. I'm just talking about where it came from. I'm not saying, oh no, only women's studios are nice. No,
No. Yeah.
many studios, mixed, one gender, both genders, more than that, and they can be great. But
Yeah.
I
It's
just think
proof of concept too.
I just think it started from from that specific aspect. Of course, I might be wrong. I'm not a historian, so I could absolutely fact check. But I think it's not a completely out in the fucking wilderness kind of theory to say that it might have started from the female influence within the industry back
Well, and I
then.
think like proof of concept almost, would it even work? Like that's a cool
Hmm.
idea to think like, oh, the tattoo industry is what it is now. Well, if we morph it and we make it more of a comfortable environment, are people going to accept that? And then once people started to see like, oh yeah, like, okay, women are getting more prevalent in the
Hmm.
industry. They're creating this style of tattoo shop. Wait, it's working. Oh, so
Yeah,
we can all just do that,
that's exactly how I think it happened. Like
Yeah.
that's how, at least, I mean, thinking back in my own fucking scrambled brain by now. Well, I saw just from the outside, as a collector and as a tattoo fan since I was 18. no, since before I was 18, but I started collecting at 18.
Yeah.
That's what you sort of saw. Even from the older women and the older generations that are fucking in the 60s and 70s now, even their studios back then almost were like a bit more welcoming, a bit more nice, a bit more open, uh, all that shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it seems apparent where it fucking came from.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see that it's being embraced more, but it's just, the thing is, we're not out of the woods in that way yet, I would say. Because as I said earlier as well, there's still a need for female-owned spaces in the world, in this industry. Because there's still a lot of bullshit going on, and there's still people that might need the comfortability of that, of a female-owned studio, a queer-owned studio, or a black-owned studio, or a fucking Asian-owned studio, or trans-owned studio. Because it's just nice to sometimes know you don't have to do the extra legwork to be like, oh fuck, how are these cunts gonna accept me now?
Yeah.
You know?
Or feel like you can't get a tattoo
Yeah,
because you're never going to be accepted when you walk in any place.
exactly. Even I mean, it's ridiculous to say today because almost half the people that get tattoos are fucking geeky like me now and want anime and fucking video game tattoos like I do. But back in the day as well, you might even feel nervous being like, oh, I want a video game tattoo because the fucker on the other side might be like, fuck, man, are you a child? What the fuck? I don't tattoo minors. Why do you want a fucking video game tattoo, you know?
Right.
Because even that used to be fucking looked down upon like fuck, and now they've all realized, fuck, man, new traditional's cool, fucking new school's cool again, fucking anime tattoos rule and all that
Oh my
stuff.
gosh. Yeah, we do all of it. That's what's so awesome too. Like the
Oh
varying
yeah,
clientele, because
yeah.
all of us have a slightly different style and all of
Oh,
us have
that's good.
different
I
interests.
think that's great to have in a studio that
Yeah.
also so you don't necessarily you can get inspired by one another, but you don't compete too hard with each other within a studio.
It's great because we see clients jump between all of us. It's
Oh,
like, I want this. It's my favorite.
that's
Or they'll
nice.
be like, I'm going to get one from each of you. Like, it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
it's so awesome. And then they know, all right, I've got this style of tattoo that I really, really want. Well, I'm just going to go to
Mm,
her for this. Or like, like
yeah.
we just all do just enough different that
Mm,
what do you want? You can probably find it here. So you can feel
nice.
comfortable knowing that maybe I don't have to leave the studio. I can just jump to
Mm.
a different artist within the same studio.
Was that at least intentional? I mean, I imagine that's intentional, that you sort of
Kind
went
of,
for
yeah.
saying, hey, let's
I
get some
mean,
variation.
so because I've trained everybody except for May. She's
Okay.
our newest addition. She's been here for a year. And she likes to do a lot of like the fine line, the tinier stuff.
Oh,
But my style being more realism. But when I was trained, when I learned from my dad, I learned everything. Like I had to learn
oh yeah, but I was
all of it.
back in the day. I mean, that was back when I was still, that's how it was done.
You had
I mean,
to.
I'm not a tattooer myself. I do see the point in, having variety in what you're capable of doing can really lead you to having a lot more clientele in tough times. But also get the fact of like, fuck, man, if you're really eager to get your own mark in the world and your own art going, which is all, I mean, you're all fucking artists, so of course you all want that. And if you
Yeah.
can streamline that more today, I mean, I also get that.
Yeah.
Because
But it was
yeah.
in my mind and in my opinion, it was great to know all the
Oh,
different styles
absolutely. Oh,
because
no,
then once you
absolutely.
decide what you love to do, then you can kind of drive home on that, but always pull from all
Oh,
those different
absolutely. I absolutely
influences,
agree. I absolutely
you
agree.
know?
And it can also absolutely, like you're sort of saying between the lines there, it can also fuel creativity to be like, oh
Correct.
yeah, then I'll take a bit from here and I'll take a bit from there and we'll swish it around. We'll fucking see what comes out, you know?
Yes.
Like,
So that's the way that I train. Like I try and teach them all
mm,
the different things that they could possibly know so that once they decide, all right, this is like this is, you're doing color, you're doing realism, you're doing
yeah.
fantasy, you're doing all these different things and you do that one tattoo and you're like, "Oh, this speaks to me."
Mm,
Well, now you have all the tools to take and to make that the coolest version of what it is.
absolutely.
My girl Elise, like she's really into video games too, so she tends to get a lot of the cool like video game
Single? No.
pieces, the anime pieces. Yeah, I told you that we have a home
No,
for you
no,
too.
no, no. I have do
It's
not have the money to travel to the US right now.
but then and then JC, she loves
Mm,
botanical. She's really into nature and she does the most
mm.
beautiful nature
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like you just if you can think of it, somebody here is going to be able to do that for you. My current apprentice, she does these really beautiful like etching style.
Oh
So it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
this
that can be so cool sometimes. Not what I would ever get, but I mean, it might also be because we're so close to medieval history. We learn a lot about it in Europe, you know. So it's really cool. Like it's sort of reminiscent of these old drawings we would see reprinted in history books and that in high
Yeah.
school and stuff like that. It's very cool. Like
It's really
really,
cool. And
so
getting to
fucking
see
cool.
that, like just watching it all develop and then,
Yeah,
but then still being like, you know what? I want to add a little color today. Well, I know
yeah.
how to do that, you know?
No, no. Again, fully agree. Like,
Yeah.
and your point is, I couldn't make it better myself. Like, it's absolutely cool if you streamline, but it's also knowing the other stuff makes you also sit. If you one day sit down, if let's say Elise, for example, if she one day sits down in the year's time and says, "Oh, I'm gonna reinvent my style," she doesn't have to learn something. She already has some tools she can go and reinvent and experiment with. A much bigger toolbox to do that with. So I fully agree with your point. Like, it is the better way to do it. I'm just saying I don't knock the other way. Like I
No,
don't
no.
dislike that. But I do always say if you want to learn more, that's always great. Like it's the same thing we talked about your husband being a linguist and myself being a sociologist. Well, I learned sociology. You know, there's no two ways about it. You in the first year you get to try every kind, like every little sub-genre of sociology. And I landed on embodiment sociology and thought, fuck man, the body and identity is connected like this. Shit, that's what I want to do. And then I
Totally
stayed the course after that. You know, it's the same
yeah.
principle. Like I've also had criminology, anthropology, sexology, fucking social psychology, all sorts of stuff. I've tasted around linguistic sociology, fucking cultural sociology, everything. But it then fell into what I like. You know.
Right, right. What spoke to you?
Yeah, exactly. And for example, my best friend, he's an urban sociologist. He loves the idea of how we can build cities to be more sustainable, but also more socially like vibrant and diversity minded and stuff like that. Not
Mm.
my thing at all. But that's what he did. He also tried every single kind he could and figured out that's his thing. Same with tattooing. And like, it's fucking, I think your idea is brilliant there. By going, hey, let's try this. Learn some realism, learn some black work, learn some old school tribal, learn some fucking Japanese style or old school or neo traditional, everything. And then they along that trip, you know, each find out, yeah, this is my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to watch. And that's another awesome thing to see in this industry. Like when I started, there was no such thing. I mean, I don't want to say there's no such thing as a style, but it wasn't so prevalent because you
I
couldn't
mean,
afford to just do one
close.
thing, you know?
Even
Like
even
you
in
just
2000, even in 2006 when you started, I would say it was almost close to be like there's no real like that. There was, but
but you but if you didn't know how to
it
do all
was
the
less
things, it's
apparent.
like
It was
you're
less
just
apparent,
never gonna work. Yeah, because there weren't
and
enough of us out there. But
and you would
now
have
it's
to
like
travel far at times to find another style. Like
right, exactly.
it always be like, no, this town we only do Japanese, and this town we only do black and gray, and this town we
Right.
only do old school. You know?
Yeah. But it's so cool now, you see it's kind of a hard mindset to even for me, just being a little bit more old school. It's like, man, you can literally make a career at just doing
Yeah.
one thing. That's
It's
incredible
baffling.
to me.
It's
It's
incredible. I think
it's
it's cool, but I do agree with you though. It is even cooler when you're like, fuck man, let's switch it up. Let's do
I
some
want to
like
do everything.
yeah. And some
Yeah.
people still learn that way, and then they settle on a
Yeah,
style anyways, and that's also
definitely.
fucking great. But you
Yeah.
can also clearly tell sometimes when people know different methods of like doing
Yeah.
different styles, and then they, suddenly make something completely baffling and incredible by saying, "Oh, let me mix." For example, polka trash as a style only came in because some people both knew how to do simple black work tribal stuff, also knew how to do black and gray realism and color realism, and then mixed in surrealism from their art background. That's the only reason that style came about. Like
It's such a cool style. It's so
it is.
awesome.
Again, not my thing, but seeing a good polka trash sleeve, because there's some bad ones out there, but seeing a good polka trash sleeve, like
Amazing.
fucking
Well, like full circle, Katie, first tattoo she ever did on me is
yeah.
these realistic flowers. And now
Oh,
you see what she does.
I don't know why my mic jumped to like, I thought you were gonna say what's trash and look at the new one she did.
No,
I don't know why.
no,
I
but
thought for a second you were gonna be like completely calling out your former apprentice, be like, look at the first one
no.
she did. Absolute shit. Absolute
No,
horrible.
no, no, no. And I will say, like, I did not apprentice Katie. I wish I did.
Oh,
She
sorry.
came
Sorry.
fully trained. She
Uh,
was amazing. But no, but
uh,
she was doing like fine line, realism,
mm,
like, all that kind of stuff. And now you see the style that she's transitioning
yeah.
to, and it's so unique and it's so her. And
Mm,
she is just so incredibly
mm.
successful at it. You know, it's just but she, she clearly came from a different place and learned so many different things.
Mm.
And now you can see in her work how she's able, like she does a very specific theme, but then sometimes she pulls in these different unique little parts to it, and you can
Yeah, no.
see that like that shift. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
the mother is coming out in you again right now. That like the proud mother hen kind of.
Can't help it. I
not
love
not
watching
even
people get
your apprentice,
successful
and you're still being all like.
because like watching
No,
people
it's beautiful.
succeed.
No,
Oh,
I fully agree. I mean, I've barely got my career off the ground. I still fucking love seeing other people, fucking make it or getting shit done. But to a different point, I'm
yeah.
curious what you're gonna say to this. It is like the theme, but so I'm not gonna preamble it too much because that'll lead your answer. But is there such a thing as a male and female tattoo?
I mean, in my opinion, I'd say no. I, I've crossed so many borders, and it's on both men and women. So,
Yeah.
and I think with what I do specifically, it's kind of I don't see it as much because I do a lot of realism. Um, Thematically, I see crossing
Yeah.
constantly. I mean, I guess if I would say anything, maybe some of my male clients get a little heavier
Hmm.
tattooing, but I can't even say that because then I have so many women who have these like full
Oh,
sleeves, dark. Ugh,
love when women get bold tattoos, man.
me too, so much. So
Oof, oof.
yeah, I
That
don't.
sounded like your husband had to be worried for a moment
Oh my God,
there.
I love it so much. I don't know. I think everybody looks so
You're
much
like,
better with
no, you
tattooing,
can't,
but
you can't come into the studio and say hi today.
she's too pretty. I'm sorry. You got to stay
Sorry,
home.
sorry, we're doing bold work today.
Yeah, from my perspective,
No, no, I
I would
agree.
say no. Yeah.
No, I mean, of course, you might already realize it. I mean, because you already have like a cheat sheet at home, knowing another academic, so you already know what I'm going to say. I think, but yeah, no, I think completely theoretically speaking and sociologically speaking, no, that's not. It's a social construct. What's female and male coded. I will say this: even I fall prey. Even I fall victim to like the old school ways of thinking, or that sometimes. Like I've looked at great artists and I've thought, that's a bit too pastel for me. But that's only because you think that even though I don't gender it in my way of talking about it, it still has a bit of a origin in that sort of thing. They're like the
Yeah.
bolder colors, and it's like, oh yeah, there's some blue and some red in there, and but you see women do the same, and it's fucking awesome. Like
Right. Right.
and so objectively speaking, as a sociologist, no, that's of course not. But I do get that sometimes people do feed something into it, and it can also be important to the artist I get as well,
Yeah.
even if the client might not care or give a shit, it can still be important to the artist I see sometimes that are like, no, I make feminine, cute, this kind of tattoos or something like that. And that's cool. Like, as long
Yeah.
as that's what you want. But objectively speaking, even a man could get that. Even
For sure.
a completely straight cisgender man, if they want to, fuck it, man. Like, I even got told once when I got, like, for example, my Rurouni Kenshin tattoo here. If nobody knows what that series is, seeing a couple hugging, even if one of them has a samurai katana in a sheath, not drawn, but lovingly embracing in a way, like that seems girly to some men having
Yeah.
that because it's a very romantic tattoo in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't give a shit. It's my favorite manga couple ever,
Well, there you
And
go.
that's the thing when you don't. And I again think women are better at this sometimes, even though women can also fall heavily victim to it in more on the client side. I think breaking some of these gender stereotypes regarding tattoo styles.
Yes.
Because
Definitely.
I mean, one of my great friends who lives in Australia, tattoos down there, called Alicia Sia Tattoos. Brilliant. You should check her out if you want. So I'll send you a link to her if you want at some point.
Yeah. Love that.
But she does these bold, really gothic, big tattoos. And some women will fucking get told by their boyfriends or even without the boyfriend to be there, oh, I don't know. I think my boyfriend would hate it if I got something that big or that. And you sort of fall prey to, and they even without even single women sometimes be like, oh no, that's a bit bold. That's a bit manly if I get a big tattoo like that. Fuck that. There's nothing manly about it. It's up
No.
to you. And just as masculinity is defined by the person themselves, so is femininity. You know. But
Absolutely.
you see it. I imagine you've seen it as well. I mean, you've been pretty lucky with your style, as you said. But you must have seen some where it's like, oh no, can we make it smaller? Can we make it this or this because they feel a bit too masculine, perhaps?
Oh yeah, or vice versa for sure. Or
Yeah, I mean,
even like with a theme, it's like, well, just
yeah,
don't put flowers in my tattoo. But
that
half the
exactly
flowers that I
like
do are on men. It's like
yeah,
so it's preference. It's all about the
absolutely.
preference too.
But you do
Yeah.
see it. I mean, it's not consciously for people sometimes. Even people that are very
No.
progressive sometimes will still be like, no, no, flowers might be, but and it can still come from those old school sort of ingrained in the back of your head sort of ideals about male and female in a weird way. This weird
Yeah.
binary we've created, where they'll be like, no, no, fuck, man, Lily's there. Are you crazy? That's
Right.
like,
You still see it for sure. It's cool to watch them like get broken down
oh, that
more
is cool.
and
Yeah,
more
yeah.
though.
I
It
do
is
love
really
seeing
awesome.
that because I see men that sometimes get, I mean, straight men as well, they get something where it's like, oh, that's a really pastel to do, and it's still fucking well done and awesome, and they don't give a shit. That's awesome to see.
Exactly.
Or even better in my book, but I am heavily biased, of course. When I see women get like really fucking bold and colorful tattoos, fucking love it, man.
Love it. I love
I
it. And I think it also
absolutely fucking
comes
love
down to
it.
the quality of the tattoo, though. There's a difference in seeing somebody
Oh
who
yeah.
is like very heavily tattooed and maybe they're not done super well and the placement isn't really thought
But
out.
I go,
You
but that's
know,
men and women. Like I
that's what I
always get
mean.
disappointed when I get closer to a person and I'm like, oh, I had ink envy right till I got close enough to see what
Yeah,
they actually
you
look
know?
like.
And that's what I mean. So sometimes it's like, no matter what your gender or whatever you identify, like if you have like not the greatest looking
Yeah.
tattoos, that can sometimes skew the way that you're
Mm.
seen. But then you have these bold, amazing tattoos, but they're incredibly gorgeous and well done. Well,
Yeah.
that's a whole different, and
Absolutely.
that's where I think the industry is so special because now you've got all this talent out there. So if you
Mm.
want to be boldly and heavily tattooed, you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about feeling like you're going to look a certain kind of way because it's going to be so beautiful that you can't help but just be proud of your
I mean,
skin, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I fully agree, but that's also the whole thing. That's another thing, and I think people sometimes get a bit too much panicky about it because well, to be honest, not to, I don't want to name anybody, but some people miss too much the power they felt tattoos had when they were scary and when it took less to be scary as a tattoo person. And that's not loving tattoos, that's loving the effect they had.
Yes.
I think it's
And some
more
people
pure
still
love
get
to love
them.
tattoos. I mean, I think it's more pure love to love tattoos the way you and I, for example, do, where it's like, I don't care if they're fucking disgusting to people if they fucking love them, as long as I get to love them
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have them. I don't care. I don't care if they're
Yeah.
popular, the most popular thing on the planet, if they're fucking prejudiced again the fuck out of existence. I just love tattoos.
God, and it makes me feel so much more like
Even
me
if even if every other fucker was tattooed around me, wouldn't give a shit.
right.
I love tattoos.
Yes.
And
And
as
I
you said, it makes me feel like me. But I did think of another thing that I don't know how much you've been read on feminist theory, but it's another cool thing about tattoos do, and it's mainly for women especially. Oh, I'd rather say, yeah, that's a better way to say. It's especially for women and queer folk also, but they sort of are a way to also reclaim identity from the patriarchally constructed norms within society, beauty standards, for example, and also a way to rebel against some of these beauty standards. Because even looking you look fairly, I would say, traditionally feminine in the way your hair is and your makeup and stuff like that. But being tattooed for a lot of normies, it's like, no, that's a man's thing. And even in the tattoo world, some men are like, still like, men get tattoos, women don't, or don't get big tattoos. So it's also a way of you saying, fuck you, my body, my choice, my fucking free will, my identity,
It's so
you know.
interesting we're talking
And
about this because I don't post a lot of my face or like
no,
me
no,
as a person, and I just today for some reason did, and the whole point of it was the more and more tattoo I've gotten over my
mm,
lifetime, the more and more I've felt like I feel more confidence in this body
yeah,
because I
so,
was
yeah,
not, like I didn't choose this body and I
no,
really like I've struggled with it my whole life and I've always struggled with the fact like I didn't have my arm tattoos for a really long time, like right up until
yeah,
after I had my daughter. And I cannot tell you how many times people will be like, you don't look like a tattoo artist. Like, are you sure you're a tattoo artist? It's like, man, like fuck, it was so frustrating. But
yeah,
now and it wasn't for lack of not wanting them. It was again like me knowing that I wanted a specific look on my
yeah,
the most visible parts of my body.
yeah, yeah,
But I will say that the more I've gotten and now that I look at myself, I feel like I'm finally in the body that I was supposed to be
yeah.
in, and it's my choice. And I've always had a lot of like, I've been very self-conscious. I had a lot of social anxiety my whole life. I'm like, don't look at me, just don't look at me, please don't look at me, and I just tried to shrink myself just so that nobody could see me.
But I think that it counts especially for women because you can also. Oh, I'm not trying to. Oh, please don't let this sound like I'm trying to speak on behalf of women.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no.
talking from a purely sociological, theoretical perspective. That a lot of feminists who are around tattoos have also talked about this. That it's sort of taking control back in a way. This reclaiming idea because a lot of women lose a lot of feeling of agency because they constantly feel bombarded with pressures to look a certain way and be appealing, especially for straight women, be appealing to men and pleasing to the male gaze and all this bullshit, and get bombarded in women's magazines as well with like, this is the perfect female body. No, this is the perfect female body. So I imagine taking back that control by saying, no, this is.
This is.
That's sort of the way you do it. Same for
Yeah.
me. I mean, with toxic masculinity, just the same for men. I felt more and more like myself, not because I've worked out, because I didn't want to be skinny anymore. That came way later. But I still felt more like myself every tattoo I got because I kept being bullied for how I look and all that with red hair and all that sort of shit. So taking control and like cementing and anchoring the point that like, no, fuck, don't get to control how I look. I look the
Yeah.
way I want to look. It's so important to people. But it does, and that's another point, go doubly so for women because that is just, it's irrefutable. Sorry to say this to any fuckers out there that want to keep the fucking shutters down on their eyes and plug their ears with this. Women does suffer more than doubly so under this. Anybody not cisgendered male suffers more under this kind of pressure than men do.
Yeah.
Way more. Way more.
We're just forever
And that's even
bombarded with
and
that.
that's even accounting for toxic masculinity, which could sometimes really be even worse towards men than towards women, almost at times, depending on the social context, of course. Even accounting for that, women have it way worse in this regard, and
Yeah.
other non-cisgendered male. So I just think it's beautiful, and that's another reason why I think it's important also sometimes to have a female studio, because if you already feel that way, it's nothing against male tattooers. You just might not want to have this transformation done by a man because it feels like it might retract from that point a little bit, I would imagine. And that's not a thing that's male tattooers. I think for many women that feel that way, that's just adding to sort of the reclaiming feeling of it that it's also done by a woman. So it's sort of doubly, taking back the power.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just cool to say. I just had one of my clients reach out to me. He's in another country right now. And he's just since he was there the last time, he got a full sleeve and a
Oh, right,
three-quarter
yeah.
sleeve by me. And so he's going there now and he's texting me and he's like, it is so cool. Like I'm getting this attention. And it's like, I just want my whole body to be tattooed because I've never like I love seeing the transformation in people and the way that
Yeah.
they see themselves now and just
Mm.
like they stand a little taller, and you just feel more just comfortable. Like we're just stuck in this, like there's nothing we can do. So decorate it.
I mean, simply speaking, and one of my favorite, a friend of mine who's a professor in sociology in Wolverhampton in England, wrote a whole book about this called "Contemporary Tattooing in Contemporary Society." If you have the money for it, pick it up. Even as a tattoo artist, it's written, and so anybody can really read it. But it's a sociological book where he also talks about this quest for authenticity that we all have. And a lot of us getting tattoos, especially people that are really into tattoos, not just people that get a few and just be on fashion, but people that really like tattoos. Every tattoo is a step towards this greater sense of an authentic self and an improved sense of self. And that's the feeling we have. That's why it results in more confidence. Because when you feel more like yourself, you feel more in control, and that breeds more confidence.
Right. And what can you do with confidence? Everything.
Well, yeah, there are fuckers like me where it's really taking its fucking time. I'm not have much confidence, but generally speaking, for all the others out there, the magic sauce is easier to fucking buy when you don't know how it's fucking made. But yeah, you were
Well,
and to think Jessie was worried about swearing, she's clearly not watched the show before.
I feel much more comfortable now.
Oh no, I swear a lot. I can't help it. It's part of who I am. It's not.
Yeah,
It's never against people, and if people get offended by it, I'm sorry for you, but it's not
just in
against
there.
anybody. Like it's not. I get it if people get offended if I sat here calling you a cunt, like
Right.
it's
That's very
starting at
different
you.
though.
I just
Yeah.
swear. It's just
Yeah.
fucking yeah.
It's
But
emphasis.
we digress. But here at the end, because we're getting towards that, I don't want to keep you too long because we're gonna make a second episode if I keep you much longer by now.
I'd be down.
But I have a fun question that hopefully answers. I mean, it's been very lighthearted, but we also gotten around some serious topics. So to sort of cleanse the palate and to ask you funny questions,
Okay.
I want to know your favorite girl and the one you last had a fight with in the shop.
Oh my God, I don't think I've actually never had a fight with any of the girls in the
That's
shop.
just great. I mean, that's a valid response. I'm not going to be one of these dickheads that dig into it and be like, no, you must have. No, perfectly valid. That's just
This has
awesome to
been,
hear.
we get so many times I tell people I run a female tattoo shop and their first inclination is, oh, must be
Oh,
drama. And
I
I'm
can
like,
only imagine. They think it's all
listen,
gonna be bitching and like, oh, one time a month it probably explodes. Fuck off.
listen to me. I've had so many different jobs in my life and
Yeah.
I cannot drive home enough. This is the most comfortable. This is the most
Mm.
supportive. This is the most loving, exciting,
Yeah.
goofy, fun team I've ever worked with. Like we are literally
Nice.
a bunch of goofballs who love people and just want to get here and
I
do
mean,
some
if
cool
you're any
tattoos.
example, clearly.
It's we have too much fun most days. Like when we're
Oh,
all here, it's
I,
ridiculous.
I know I'm asking you to pick them out amongst your kids as well right now, but
Oh,
I do want to. I did this one just for the fun of torturing you, but I do want to say, who's your favorite girl at the moment in the show?
God. I can't because like everybody is so unique. It's wild.
Oh,
I mean, I
it is mean of me to ask again. I get it. I get it.
I'll be devil's advocate just because she's my sister, so she's easy because I've known her for the
Whoa, whoa.
longest. Like,
Oh, okay. I
she's
thought you were gonna throw her under the bus, and I'd be like, no, she
no,
least favorite. And
no,
she's
no, the
like,
opposite. The
no,
opposite.
no, that would have been so sibling of you sneaking as a sibling myself to be like, no, no, okay, I hate them because fuck it.
No, no,
We'll get into a fight anyways over Christmas or something like that.
no, I go in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
She's, my one of my first apprentices, and she's
Oh,
been
that's nice.
obviously I've known her since she was born. She's
Yeah, I
like my
mean,
best
yeah,
friend in the
that
entire
does
world.
make sense. You weren't just absent at for the first few years.
Yeah, she's stuck with me forever, and so I
Oh,
mean,
that's
like I
sweet.
can't choose a favorite, but
Oh.
yeah,
No,
I
I think
obviously
that's a beautiful way to do it. To be like, well, I mean, that is special. I mean, there's an added sibling bond that's really strong on top of the whole you work well together and you've apprentice to and all that. See,
yeah.
I mean, I wasn't trying to trap you either. I
No,
hope nobody's gonna think that. I mean, I would have been, just so people know, I would have been perfectly okay with not getting an answer. I just thought it
yeah.
was funny to tattoo Jessie. I do get to know people before I interview them, so I knew Jessie can handle this.
Everybody's so unique here.
I
It's
mean,
the
this
best
sounds
part
awesome.
about it. Yeah.
But Jessie, we're at the end, and first of all, I want to thank you so much for being on here. I've
This is
enjoyed it so much, and I think it's been a great episode. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience and what you have to say on this topic. And please plug whatever you have going on, and especially I know we've mentioned it already, but just for the last round as well, the studio and where's it located
So
as
it's
well.
just another hole in the wall tattoo. It's in Pendleton, South Carolina, tiny little town, South Carolina, outside of Greenville. I mean, I just invite everybody. We're about to redo the whole website and kind of give it a
Hmm.
whole facelift so that it's a little bit more interactive and
Ah,
we're going to have an email newsletter finally so that people can
okay.
get information on what we're doing, and it's not just on social media because
No, no.
a lot of people still don't have social media, which I love.
Yeah,
And I praise you for not.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah. So
Envious is
yeah,
the word.
same. Yes, 100%. So I mean, so that's going to be a cool shift. We're going to be able to get
Nice.
out there. We do flash days, like
Oh, nice.
quarterly, just to invite new people into the shop so you don't have to have an appointment. You get to kind of meet
Hmm.
us and see the shop and do all that. So just come check us out, I mean, if you're looking for just like a really, really nice, fun, ridiculously enjoyable experience while you're getting tattooed,
I mean, if I'm
check
ever in
out all my
South
girls.
Carolina.
Come on. It's a pretty cool state. It's got its stuff, but it's beautiful and
I'm not gonna dig into that. I know the stuff even
that's
from
a
over here.
whole nother
But
podcast.
no, no,
But
let's not sour the good note right now.
no, no, no. No,
Um,
it's a really beautiful location that we're in.
and
And
where can people find you and the studio on Instagram?
it's at just another HITW. Just
Hmm.
that's our shop Instagram, and then we each have our own personal Instagrams that are all listed on the page as well.
I'll at least list Jesse's own under the episode as well.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it's J Silva Tattoos is mine, but go to the shop instead.
Too embarrassed. Don't show that. Don't show that. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Right.
I appreciate this very much, and thank you so much for having me on.
And thank you as well. And to anybody listening or watching, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
Hello, everybody. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this episode with the lovely and awesome Jessie Silva. I hope you get why the title is what it is. It's definitely, despite the name and the beautiful homage it is to where she came from and how she got her start, and paying it back to honor that. Definitely not just another hole in the wall, or in the woods for that matter, like me and Jessie joked about. The studio she created with all the lovely women she has there and taking under her wing in her studio, and the beautiful space she's built there. But I hope you also get that even though we talk about the importance of having female-owned and studios owned by other marginalized groups and having representation in safe spaces in that way, so to speak, that doesn't mean, just as we spoke about in the episode, that other studios that are invalid or necessarily dangerous or anything like there's anything bad with the old as such. That very much is a case-by-case thing. Some, of course, yeah, there are studios out there that are horrible, we all know that. But it's not generalized in that way. But I hope you recognize the importance, because it is good that we have these spaces. It is good that there's more access to people that do want to get tattoos and do want to have it in a space where they feel welcome, recognized, and feel they can be themselves and feel safe being themselves while out there. But enough about that. Next time, I'm going to be talking to quite the legend, if you ask me. Very famous on YouTube and in social media space. Professor at both Oxford and Cambridge University. Well, he's teaching at both universities. Expert in maths and a maths professor. And heavily tattooed and enthusiastic tattoo lover, Tom rocks maths. Where me and him are going to be talking about how it is being at such world-renowned institutions while also being so open about being tattooed and having a more alternative style and all that, and how it really never was anything different from how he was before he was tattooed, because he was always this sort of type. He was always alternative, and the tattoos only sort of cemented that fact. But we'll get more into that in the next episode when I talk to Dr. Tom Crawford about his career and his tattoo love and how it all plays together. So I hope you look forward to that, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.